All righty, we are now going to hear from the illustrious Kasheef Wyzard of Dream Corps. For those of you that are not familiar with the organization, it is in partnership with Van Jones and many other movements happening across the country that you have seen leading sort of this reform movement, if you will. And I'm not going to steal Kasheef's thunder. Kasheef, take it away.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Angel. I'm glad to be here and be a part of this conversation today and just to add value. It's relevant and it's needed. So with that, just to level set with the audience, give you all an idea of what I do, more information about Dream Corps Tech or Dream Corps overall, and that intersectionality between policy, social justice, and again, especially tech, given my background. So I'm actually going to do a brief presentation with you to level set. So if you just bear with me 1 sec, I'm going to share my screen. All right. Great. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. If not, let me know, give me a signal. I have my chat open. But again, my name is Kasheef Wyzard, and I am the National Programming Initiatives Director for Dream Corps Tech, hoping to add value to the space today with the conversation around tech diversity, social justice, and policy, that intersectionality. Start off again with the introduction. I like to connect with people below the green line, as I call it, speak to my how and my why, which hopefully gives you insight to why I'm in the space that I'm in and the work that I'm doing. Touch on the mission, vision, and value statement of Dream Corps. Again, how it fits in that umbrella of Dream Corps, Dream Corps Tech, specifically myself. Why the time is now around policy reform, as well as programs like the program that I lead. And then I'll speak to one of my programs, share success and testimonies, and then, love to just open it up and have a conversation. So again, National Programming Initiative Director for Dream Corps Tech. Dream Corps Tech is one of 3 programs with Dream Corps. So as Angel mentioned, Van Jones is one of the founders. And specifically with Dream Corps Tech was actually founded in 2014 by Van Jones and the late Prince. The overall mission of Dream Corps is to close prison doors and open doors of opportunity. How did I get into this space? I'm a first-generation American born to parents of Caribbean descent. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. Fortunately, it was exposure that allowed me to dream. So I have this saying, expose us to dream, access enables us to build. We need space to fail and affirmation to believe. I got that in my childhood, fortunately, but it was that dichotomy of being in a program where I went to a school an hour away while living in a bad area, typical inner city stuff. But it was the dichotomy of where I went to school and the exposure that I had, the dichotomy of that versus where I lived and what I saw in the day-to-day. I believe that fueled this how and why thought process that I've always had, which inevitably and eventually got me into this space. So specifically with Dream Corps Tech, which again is one of 3 programs at Dream Corps overall, national program cultivating future tech leaders and entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds. We create diverse pipelines of talent that will shift the tech sector forward. Specifically with tech, we have an acronym. So we're going to shift the culture in 4 ways. Through training, which I'm going to speak to one of our programs again in just a second, in which we train and provide technical and soft skills to untapped talent from underrepresented communities, engage, providing resources and tools, connecting our members with education and technology, change, construct and influence policy at the state and federal level. This is actually a new endeavor of the program. And then humanize. We inject soul into tech through conversations highlighting diversity, storytelling, et cetera. So Dream Corps Tech, two sides. Policy initiatives, our 4 policy areas. Again, we're launching in 2021. Fortunately, our sister programs, Cut 50, Green for All at Dream Corps, have done this so well. And we have leaders over there that we're excited to build and work with. So diversity in tech, coding and algorithm bias, broadband access, ethics and privacy. Those are our 4 policy initiatives that we'll be embarking on 2021. Our program initiatives, which are currently active, and we have more, but these are our most coveted programs, our corporate cohort training and corporate and collegiate scholarships. So why is the time now? And specifically around tech policy. Not to read off the screen, but essentially, technology and the internet have transformed the world. In a technology-rich world, no amount of memorizing will make a student competitive in a global market. So technology has brought the world together. And because of systematic racism and barriers that are in place, you have underrepresented communities that are being left behind. So policy is needed to close the gap. So equality and equity of access is more than just access to hardware and software and broadband connections. It also includes having the best learning resources. And technology brings a lot of this together. The state of tech-related legislation. 21 tech-related related bills have been recently introduced, and this is as recent as 2015. I've done some research here, but also shout out to the Congressional Black Caucus, as they have a tech initiative themselves. One thing I noticed that over 60% of the bills that were introduced happened in 2015. That was interesting to me. 2015 was also, as we know, when Obama was transitioning out of office. So just a raw thought right now, but it was very interesting to me that there were so many bills introduced that year. 2 of 21 moved, meaning 1 was moved into law, which is around home security, homeland security, and the other with email privacy. Essentially, we have to empower communities of color and close tech equity gaps with legislation. So why the time is now around workforce development programs like which we have over at Dream Corps Tech. So what fuels our work is studies around the future of work, and it's presented that or predicted that by 2030, 60% of the jobs that exist today will be impacted negatively due to automation and advances in technology. Communities of colors are predicted to have the highest percentages of job displacement. African Americans, 23.1%, Hispanics, 25.5%. Those percentages equal hundreds of thousands of jobs. The state of the professional, and I'm giving you 3 perspectives here. The state of the professional, alternative learning pathways are being considered more now than ever. In 2019, the average cost for an online coding bootcamp was $14,623 per person. If you think about the communities or the people who need exposure to alternative pathways the most, can they afford that? $14,623. Finance options include upfront pay or installment, student loans, or income share agreements, which means that if and when they land a job afterwards, big emphasis on if, they have to pay a percentage of their income back for certain terms that they'd agreed to. So it could be up to 4 years. State of the employer, major organizations, you name them. There's a revolving door right now, diverse talent entering and leaving organizations. Since 2016, retention of Black tech talent or talent in high tech Silicon Valley has gone from 7% to 5%. Recruiting costs, it costs an average of $20,000 in recruiting fees for a single IT hire. It's estimated that a diverse IT hire costs 3 times that. At the end of the day, we need, or people of color need to be at the table. The future is being written in code, and to truly be inclusive, our people must be architects creating that future. So I gave you the lay of the land in regards to policy, in regards to workforce development and the desire and the need for unconditional pathways into tech. I lead a program, I co-lead this program, but I and my responsibility are over all of our programs at Dream Core Tech. So our most coveted program right now is our corporate cohort training, in which recently we just graduated software engineers for a Fortune 7 company. We have a large partner who has just come on board. I actually just officially selected 19 individuals for another cohort with this partner. And this cohort begins on Monday, this upcoming Monday. So we're really excited, working really hard with that. But we partner with corporations. We get them, first of all, we're not looking to check or to work with organizations who are doing this to check a box. We're looking to partner with organizations who are ready and raising their hands saying, you know, we're ready to do this work. We want to really shift our culture forward. So we provide technical and soft skills training to untapped talent from underserved communities. We have a heterogeneous mix intentionally, meaning high experience, low experience, and we bring that together. And within our program, we do the recruiting, the vetting. It's free to the participants. Participants receive a biweekly stipend. We co-create the scope and sequence of the curriculum with Black educators, actually, so our whole staff were people of color. So we create this immersive learning experience in partner with the hiring company. So 8 to 10 weeks technical or 8 to 10 weeks training for this cohort. They also have a student success lead in the market. Mentorship program was built in, as well as weekly soft skills training. So I've built in these layers of engagement, not only to help them or ensure that they, by the end of the program, are technically more proficient, but they leave more whole. Also, over this 10-week period, they built a rapport with the company. And here's the kicker: unlike most of the models or bootcamp models out there in the industry, the job placement through our program is guaranteed at the end. We negotiate, we have those hard conversations with partners on the beginning about barriers that they may or may not have been aware of, which we actually got our recent partner to remove some barriers, i.e. requiring a 4-year degree, their background check, which was very rigid and just an archaic hiring process. We actually got them to take a leap and remove some of those. And by the end of the program, they actually shifted things around. They didn't even want to have the final interview. They were invested. They trusted the program, and at that point, they believed in the students who participated. So through our program, a corporation who partners with us would save 78% in recruiting costs. Successes thus far: 3 bootcamp trainings within the last year and a half. Again, I have one kicking off on Monday. 75 graduates. Our students or our graduates have an average salary increase of $45,000. And we have a 96% retention rate. Oh, I'm sorry, job placement rate right now. 100% retention, 96% placement. Only one person out of that within our last 3 programs didn't get through, and it was just because he didn't have the proper documentation. Testimony from our program: this brother had the experience. He was an Olympian. He was a founder, but could not catch his breakthrough. So I spoke of that heterogeneous mix. He was on the high end. We have others who come in who are self-taught. And as you can read the screen, it was this partnership with us in which, you know, it was a critical part of how our world operates today. But nothing about this world says I can be a Black man, learn from Black engineers, guided by a Black staff, and graduate in 8 weeks with an offer for a life-changing job. That's the experience that Dream Quartet gave me. He's now a beacon of light. He's actually launched his own app. This gentleman right here was self-taught. He worked at TGIF Fridays, making $13 an hour. He's a recent graduate. Cohort was life-changing. It gave me a chance to learn and step into the industry that would have been almost impossible to get into without work and essentially his background. He's forever grateful. He's actually a mentor now to students coming in through the program. From $13 an hour, now with an entry-level software engineer role at a Fortune 7 healthcare company, he's making around $75,000. So results are the ultimate catalyst for trust. I put emphasis is two parts there, trust, because that's what a lot, I think, between policy and partnerships with corporations, at the end of the day, it comes down to trust. And how do you build trust as a program like ours, for example? It comes down to the results, and we're capable. Again, it comes down to, if we have the exposure, people of color, if we have the exposure to dream, access to build, we're given room to fail, and affirmation throughout that process to believe, there's no there's no shortage of what we can do. So it's our mission to build proof and amplify our stories to change hearts and minds. And it's through these proof cases with this program, we're confident that we're going to be able to get in front of the right people and get policy passed as I share our policy endeavors. With that, I'll stop sharing and open up the conversation. Well, I can't hear you.
That was truly enlightening. I think I wrote a book over here taking notes. Well, first of all, kudos for your amazing work. You know, I could go on and on singing your praises of the presentation that you just provided us with. And I want to go ahead and take some questions from the audience. So we have here, you mentioned job loss due to tech. Through your advocacy work, have you identified any ways we can make sure people's efforts can be repurposed to solve some of the many problems we've been discussing?
Yeah, and just to make sure I heard that, correctly, basically this person is asking, how can they get involved, for lack of?
Yes, as well as I think they're asking, how can we, let me read it again. Through your advocacy work, have you identified any ways we can make sure people's efforts can be repurposed to solve many of the problems we've been discussing? So I guess what they're saying is, how can we repurpose the efforts? And it almost ties into a question I was going to ask you, but I went ahead with the audience questions, so I'll tie the two of them together. And this is going to be, I think it might be a difficult question, but you've done a lot of work. If you could redo 2020, and if you could redo the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020 and all the things that's happening, what do you feel as though technology could have prevented? Like, what could we have invented last year that we could possibly work on now to repurpose these things and prevent future harm?
Well, you said it up front. That's definitely a tough question. But I do think that technology plays a critical role. First of all, the reason that Black Lives Matter and that movement and others have been amplified the way that they have has been because of technology, right? So what do I wish existed? Again, it really just has to be with, and it is tough because of just misinformation, misinformation out there, you know. So just a trusted, I use the word trust a lot, you know. So coming into this time period a lot of things probably have to come together, but again, one of the key pillars to trust is results. Had there been a trusted, and this could have been a platform that was built, but had there been an entity in place that's built that rapport, that's built that trust, And the information being disseminated through that platform or that resource, be trusted. I think that, where we are, we would be in a different place today, because even as communities of color, we can't all, and it's not that we all have to agree on everything, but, there's this less a unified voice. I think we're closer now because of the culmination of just craziness that has happened in this year. But I think if technology could have been leveraged in a way to create a space, a platform, one that is just really trusted. And I think that would have had an impact on the year 2020, just helping us to come together.
So since we have all these, bright minds gathered together, I want to take just 30 more seconds to dive into that a little bit deeper. What do you feel as though needs to happen to make it a trusted platform? So we have, Black Tech Matters, I think I'm pretty trusted. And then, we have MIT, which is the number 3 school in the country, so also a trusted institution. So is it a matter of 2 organizations like that coming together, or is it a matter of getting 10 organizations together or 20? What does that look like to you? And somebody's saying, even prior to gaining trust, I think you need to respect each other. Yes, very good point. So what does that look like to you for us to develop that trust and that respect? How can we tangibly create that?
Yeah, great question. And part of this answer, I think the short term or the short answer or lowest hanging fruit, unfortunately, yet fortunately, because it moves the needle so fast in the world we live in today, but it's just sponsorship from trusted voices. I think that is part of the reason me just saying Van Jones' name does open doors. Not gonna lie, I will admit that. But at the end of the day, our program and the results, they speak for themselves. So, in this world, the right sponsorship, the right partnerships, because from a capability standpoint, Black Tech Matters, MIT, we know from a capability standpoint, the intention, the resources, it's there. But in terms of amplification and even bigger exposure, it takes partnership with right influencers as well. And to neglect that in 2020, I think that that's not to say a misstep, but you have to leverage that in 2020.
Okay. I totally agree with you. I was having a conversation with a friend and was like, should we give out pins? Like, should we give out pins to corporations so that they identify they're with us? Like, what do we need to do here? Yeah. Okay, someone is saying, how can people who might not have had the background education to code still benefit from the shift towards technology? Even myself, I'm named the next Steve Jobs by Forbes magazine, but originally I didn't know how to code. I taught myself how to code through YouTube. Many people don't know that. So from your perspective and working with people across the masses, do everybody need to code? I personally say yes. But what are your perspectives on that? And how can people that are non-coders get into this movement and take advantage?
Yeah, I love that. And a moment of clarity and honesty is that I don't know how to code myself, but I know based on all the engineers that I engage with, I have an engineer mindset, so it comes down to that mindset, of critical thinking, tenacious researchers, just that drive to come up with solutions. That's an engineer mindset. So it starts with the mindset. And honestly, that's what in my recruiting, that's what we assess for. Because if I assess for your technical capability, then I'm not giving the people that need this opportunity a chance. Of course, there's a sweet spot. Depending on the partner, there is that profile that we're looking for, but we're really good at finding and really just assessing for mindset. So I would say it starts with mindset. There are studies by McKinsey out there as well that speaks to, and this is McKinsey and the future of work, but it speaks to sectors that are more safe due to shifts in automation and technology. So, you know, even if at the end of the day, technology still needs to be sold. So, you know, if you're a sales professional, you know, so I think it's just a matter of just an understanding of what's coming, and some skill sets are safer than others. So we all need to kind of know, you know, and know what those are. Healthcare, sales, you know, there's a list, but understanding of that. But again, it all comes down to a mindset. And I think if more of us have that mindset, the safer we'll be. And at the end of the day, we need to pass it on. I have a 3-year-old son, and all I do is instill just critical thinking, and that's exposure intentionally.
Okay, I'm going to ask a halfway difficult question here. And I realize there's a lot of people listening to us as I ask this question. Do you think, or have you all developed some sort of mindset assessment for Black youth? Do you have almost like a Black Myers-Briggs going on? Can you share the background on that?
No, we don't, not officially, but I think with the questions that we ask. So here's one thing about our program. We call it a no dreamer, because again, the name, and we try public not to use that word dreamer so much because it has, you know, an official meaning in the public sector, but the name of my program is Dream Core Tech. So we refer to them as dreamers. So, but our students, our cohort participants, so again, no Myers-Briggs exists, but through that experience, okay, that's what I was gonna say, sorry. So that the no students or no dreamer left behind approach that we have, we're very intentional about that. So for every touch point throughout our recruiting process, so let's just say in the real world, you're applying for jobs, you're trying to get a job, you may get an automated response back. You may hear something back, right? And then more than likely through interviews, you might build 2 to 3 hours worth of rapport, you know, with that potential employer. We have a no student left behind process in which if you apply, if you reach out to us, we're going to reach back out. And then also, even when we have a technical assessment, which does assess your technical acumen and where you are. But following them taking that technical assessment, we have a post-assessment interview. So we ask questions for context, you know, so in this world, in this very transactional world that we live in today, not enough systems or people take the time to gain context. So at every step of the way throughout our program, even in the recruiting process, and of course, throughout the 8 to 10 week training, and even afterwards, we're always there. We're there in that supportive way. All of my students, they all have my phone number, you know, so context. So no Myers-Briggs, but our approach and the way that we have it, we're always digging for context because our professionals, our team, who's very experienced and has, you know, 15 plus years of education and being in corporate, we, through our experiences and the partner needs, we are pretty good at assessing one's potential, for lack of better words.
Brother, you just said a whole word just then, and actually that makes a lot of sense, and that explains why you guys have been so successful. I'm just going to ask this last question from the audience, and then we can wrap up. What about stigmas that come from existing traditional forms of trusted institutions?
One actually soft skills training that we have, and you said stigmas. So I'm just going to take it to one that we're very intentional about training on, and we have of vision and stuff in place to help organizations. But one thing that we do for our actual students is we have a session on imposter syndrome, which I think is a stigma that we, as those looking for our breakthrough into this industry, have ourselves. We don't realize it, you know, but if you're a person of color, you are exposed to, I'm sure I can get a researcher to help me with this, but the amount of microaggressions that you experience daily, situationally, that is the core, the pillar to imposter syndrome, not feeling like you belong. So we have to attack that stigma right out the gate. That's our first soft skills training. And we go there and we go deep into it. And at the end of the day, tell them and empower them, let them know that they belong. And that's one that we got to check at the door or acknowledge right in the front end. So stigmas exist, biases exist, but controlling what we can control, that's how we pour into our students. And I think that's the opportunity, just generally speaking. We gotta, there's a lot that we just have to acknowledge and face head on. And that's one stigma right out the gate that we do. And we provide data, examples, and get them to acknowledge that it's there. I actually had it for a brief second right before I came onto this session. Do I belong on this session? So I'm just very, just self-aware. Self-awareness is key. But once I heard the sister speaking before me, I was excited, so that's just how it goes. Situationally, we all have it. There's microaggressions we experience on a daily, and that's a stigma, so that's just one example.
Absolutely. We tried to make this event as lit as possible. So thank you, brother. I'm so glad that you were our final session. You kind of wrapped everything up for us. So I greatly appreciate you. Honored to have you and look forward to the future lifetime collaborations that we'll be doing together.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
All right.